currently he is leading several projects focused on assistive robotics and government manipulation. So Dr. Guillem and I, we are working on a collaborative project. So that's the reason I invite him to join this conference. But so we have an ongoing project. So I think I thank SDC to give us this opportunity to collaborate together. So for me to learn people outside Taiwan, we have like a global connection. But more importantly, I try to practice my Spanish. But Guillem never just talk in Spanish. He just talk Catalan, which is colloquial in Spain.
It's another language.
Yeah. Okay, but never mind. So I think we are truly excited to have Dr. Guillem with us today. So I think now we give him a warm round of applause to Dr. Alenyà.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you for being here. My talk is entitled this idea of bridging the gap, and I will try to stress the idea that a lot of things that we are doing nowadays with artificial intelligence, when we will try to put that into robotics, they become harder. And because they become harder from the research point of view, they are nicer. So hopefully you will end this session saying, oh yeah, robotics is cool. And the things that they are doing, it's nice, and maybe someone finds a bit of an inspiration. So first thing is, we come from Barcelona. It's this long. It's more than 10,000 kilometers. And you know Barcelona because of Gaudí, because of La Ramblas, Football Club Barcelona for sure. Nice weather, nice food. Anytime you want to Barcelona, just drop us a mail and we will walk you through the city, and maybe having interesting conversations like the ones we have had with Professor Lee. So I'm director at IRI. IRI is a research institute. We are doing mainly research projects and PhDs, that's our business. Although we are trying to do something a bit more, which is applying our robotics to real society, and you will see more of that in a bit. It's roughly 150 people, more than 30 permanents, and we are running more than 30 projects around nowadays. 1/3 in this European ecosystem, which we are very happy of. We are divided in 4 different research groups, and I'm coming from this perception and manipulation group. Okay, this is the biggest group on the institute, and our motto, our idea, is to put robots in human environments. And we do all sorts of artificial intelligence, from perception to control to decision making. Today I'm going to be talking primarily on decision making. And we do 2 different ways, we have 2 different ways of showing what we're doing. Our applications are first on manipulation of the formables. We are quite known in the European community because we were one of the pioneers on manipulating with robots textiles. This is a hard problem, and I don't have time today to talk to you, but if you are more interested, just when we are at the coffee time, just approach me and we can talk about it, because it's really very interesting. It's a very interesting topic. Today, I'm going to be talking a bit more on this second part of the things that we are doing, which is assistive robotics, putting robots in human environments, but helping them. And I would like to stress this kind of manipulation. It's not just only social things, it's intervening with the environment. This is what we like to do. Okay, I have divided my talk today into different sections. First section is the problem of deciding in robotics. Okay, there are many problems in robotics. I will tell you about it. Today I'm going to focus on deciding. Okay, why? Because in HRI there is not only one way of doing things. We have many ways of doing things. Take for example all these videos. Okay, you see here 3 different tasks: dressing the shoe, and feeding. And you see that some robots are already finished, some robots are talking. You see a small message on top of the videos. So you see that the exact same task can be done in many different ways. Okay? If I ask you how we are doing that in industrial environments, you would say, we are trying to optimize time, no? Maybe speed, no? We want the task to be done as quickly as possible. But what happens when we are in this human-robot interaction scenario? Okay, when robots are not in the factory, when robots are at home, or robots are in a hospital, then velocity, speed, is no more the thing that we want to, we call it optimize, you know? But you have many words for that. But what we would like to optimize. And let me introduce just a couple of examples, just to demonstrate that in human-robot interaction, when we put robots in human environments, things become very more complicated. Like in this example, for example, here you have, what you have is a robot is interacting with a patient. This was done with, in collaboration with this hospital, ACE Alzheimer's Center, so these were Alzheimer's patients. Here, the robot was playing a game, giving the right amount of help. Because here, what we would like to optimize, is the training, you see? The patient training. This is what we would like. How we measure that? This is a long-term objective, isn't it? So now, we have to decide to provide more help or to provide less help. You see, the doctor now, for example, is helping a lot. You know, he's saying, look here. We can do that with the robot also. Look here, you know? But when the robot decides to just give an advice, or just remember, it's your turn. You know, with Alzheimer's patients, sometimes they only need to be remembered, it's your turn, and they just continue doing the thing, you know? So how the robot decides? How we optimize this function with this patient training? That's complicated, isn't it? By the way, this was a work of one of my former PhD students, Antonio Andrella, and it got the prize to the best European PhD thesis in robotics in 2023. So the problem is worth investigating. There's another example here. For example, this is a feeding robot. Okay, you see, the patient opens the mouth. Now the robot goes there. We have a lot of gestures, so the person is in charge. If the person is not looking at the robot is not moving. If the person is not opening the mouth, the robot is not approaching. Okay, so the person is in control. But the caregiver has told us, okay, this person needs to eat a lot because he's weak, for example. Or for another person, they say, no, this person usually eats a lot. If they don't eat that much this time, it's not the problem. So the robot has an autonomous behavior of insisting, okay? And again, as the previous one, we have different levels of insisting, okay? How the robot can choose among these levels. How the robot can say if it's time to talk or it's time to move a little bit, okay? How we choose these kind of things. Because it's complicated. Why it's complicated? In this case, because we have two different preferences that sometimes collide. The caregiver, the nurse, says, no, this patient needs to eat. And the patient says, no, I'm full, I don't want to eat anymore. So what the robot does? Follows the advice of the caregiver or follows the advice of the patient. So you see that taking decisions in this kind of environments, it's hard, isn't it? But in robotics, we have an additional problem, okay, which is called symbol grounding, okay? Now we have decided to do something. Let's say move, or let's say grasp something from the kitchen, okay? Now we have to translate all these actions, go to the kitchen, look for an apple, try to grasp it, and go on, to real executable actions. So we need to know where's the kitchen. We need all these theoretical things. Go to the kitchen, it's very easy to say, but now we need to execute that, okay? So there is a fundamental problem here, that we call the gap between the high level and the low level. So in this example, for example, what you have here on top is how we decide, okay? It was based at the time on a set of planning rules, and we were using a planning algorithm to decide, okay, next action to execute is this one. But then, when the robot was moving, we were encoding all the movements like this dynamic of motion primitives. Okay, so we had to, from the idea of moving, just generate a trajectory to move. Okay, you see here, we need duration, we need transitions, we need a lot of real data to be able to execute that. But what we have is some high-level parameters. Now it's time to do this. Now it's time to do that. So hopefully you're convinced that here we have a gap. Yeah? Between when we decide to when we execute, we still need a lot of things to do in the middle. Yeah? Imagine if this is a very simple action, just moving or just moving for feeding, as we have seen. There is not that much of a gap here. But imagine things like a robot living at home. Now the person can ask the robot no matter what, and we have an immense dimensionality on the kind of action that the robot can do. Meaning, we have a lot of ways of transforming these high-level instructions to low-level. Okay. This was my first section. I wanted to stress this idea that things in robotics are complex if we go to a human-robot interaction, because there are a lot of things that we cannot really design by hand. We cannot put all these parameters there. Okay. And because it's highly dimensional, one can say, oh, nowadays, in the last 2 or 3 years, these LLMs have appeared. So let's use LLMs because this is going to save our life. And no matter, it's true. Who here has been using LLMs last time? Come on, don't be shy. Okay, 3 of you. I don't believe every one of you have been using LLMs for sure. At least, opening ChatGPT or any other kind of LLM, asking them to write politely something in another language or something. And for sure, in your work, you are also using that. Students for programming and all sorts of things. So I don't believe you. I was expecting all hands raised. Okay. My point is, should we use LLMs blindly for anything? Should we forget about all the knowledge that we have? Okay. I will claim that no, we should not embrace that blindly. And I will put here a couple of examples again on how I think we can effectively make use of these new technologies in robotics, especially in human-robot interaction. First thing is, you see, I like planning. There are these 2 recent articles saying that LLMs are not very good for planning. Okay, the first one is from Apple. A few months ago, they just changed a little bit some of the training programs, and then all the LLMs failed miserably. Because LLMs are very good if they have seen the data in the training, but if you create slightly different problems or basically new problems, they fail miserably because they have not seen that. Because in reality, they do not understand. They are just very good approximators. And they are very good approximators, so we have to choose to use them as this. And even if we are not using LLMs and we are using LLMs, things still hold. Okay? And just if you are curious and you want to, laugh a little bit on the biggest failures of AI, you can visit this website. Okay? This is the AI Darwin Awards, and you will see, some documents explaining how LLMs have been misused and how they have failed miserably for some very nice problems in real life. Usually dealing with companies like McDonald's trying to do its chatbot for selling their products and these kind of things. Okay, because we are in a human-robot interaction, you see a person, you see a robot. Okay, what we would like to solve, the problem that we would like to solve is the person says, "Hey robot, let's tidy up the kitchen and prepare the meal." And he says, by the way, today I have a bit of back pain. Okay. What we would like, and we have been working for that, several years ago, is to have a plan for both the agents, So basically the robot understands which are the tasks, okay? And then devises a plan, okay? Okay, I'm gonna take care of a part of the plan while the human can take care of the other part of the plan. Ideally, taking into account these limitations. I have back pain today. Okay? So how we have been doing that classically? Well, using planning, planning tasks. Okay, we would design by hand all the planning operators. We would change the costs of the actions. Then we would put all the preconditions, and we have a nice planning environment. Okay, what we were investigating from our experience, it was how we can effectively use LLMs to help on doing that. And we proposed a nice architecture here. So we have the inputs. One part is the goal. So you see, this part is the goal. The other part are the limitations. Yeah? And this is what we would like to obtain as before. Yeah? A plan for the both agents. Okay. By the way, this is a work that was done in collaboration with Sylvia Kirlo, who is a PhD of mine, who is graduating hopefully next week. Yeah. So hopefully we have a new doctor in the family close enough. So this is the procedure. Okay, we will use an LLM to generate sub-goals. Okay, this task that is quite general can be divided in something. Okay. If we are able to design that by hand, now we can use that. But if we don't have really that definition before, we can use an LLM to basically generate these sub-goals. And we can use the same LLM or another LLM just to make a recommendation of the allocation based on the limitation that each one of the agents have declared. For example, the human has back pain, and we know that our robot is not very good at manipulating the small things, for example. Because the gripper is quite bulky, because the precision of the manipulation system is not that high. Okay, so we can grasp easily, let's say, apples or cans, but we cannot grasp that easily, let's say, spoons. Okay, so based on that, okay, what we do? Can you imagine what we do? I'm not going to let an LLM plan. That's for sure. No, that was already stated in my opening statement, isn't it? So I'm not going to use an LLM for plan, but I'm use an LLM for help me plan, which is generating this language. And this is one example. Okay, we are using PDDL because this is one of the standards, but you can use whatever you would like. Okay. Now, with these 3 steps, I have a plan for both agents that takes into account the limitations of each one of the agents, the goals, okay? And more importantly, it can be executed because I'm using a PDDL task plan, okay? We call that plan collab NL. And we have a paper on that you can take a look if you would like. Here I have some examples on how this went. We had a database based on a database of the literature, so we are using some well-defined data sets. In our case, it was consisting on 27 objects, 17 locations, and several of the actions. Okay. These are some examples. I want to let go of the code can, please trash it, or this was the kind of examples that there were in this data set. Okay. So what we have seen in our results is that when we follow compared to other approaches, but also compared to the same approach with some leftovers, is that when we use all these 3 steps and when we apply this idea of sub-goal and then solving each one of the sub-goals for each one of the agents, what we obtain is plans that not only are more complete, but also it can be executed, okay? Because it corresponds to something that the robot can do, okay? Well, it seems that we're already there, isn't it? We have a way. Well, if you think really about it, we have the declaration of a robot that knows how to do things. But nobody has checked that these things are really possible. So there was a missing step here, you know? So from the natural language definition, we had this idea of generating sub-goals, and then for each one of the sub-goals, we generated a plan, okay? But then finally, the actions, nobody checked if these actions are really feasible. This links to the gap that I was mentioning before. Everyone says that? Yeah. So this gap that I was mentioning is still there. Okay? We have solved everything on the semantic layer, but not on the physical layer. Okay? Also, it's easy to work with natural language. That was one of the conclusions. That's nice, you know? You have something that is can generalize. But LLMs cannot provide correctness guarantees. They hallucinate. Everyone knows. Yeah? Everyone knows that when you ask something to an LLM, it hallucinates. It tries to give you the answer no matter what. If you have been in the previous talk, that was one of the points. Yeah? Hallucination. And being able, in the sense of transparency, being able, trustworthiness, sorry, being able to say, no, I have not been trained for that, I don't know the solution. Usually LLMs do not do that. They just try to convince you that they know how to do it. Okay. Because there was this gap, we proposed in our next work a way of, for each one of these actions that now we have planned, a way of checking if that action was possible in that current scenario and with that current goal. Okay? So let me explain to you briefly how this works. By the way, we call it grading. That's our approach. Okay, the approach works as is shown in the image. So we have first, here in number 1, a prompt. Okay? Our input is, can you pick something clean to drink from? That was the human interaction with the robot. Okay? Bring me something clean, I would like to drink. Okay? So basically, first step, we convert that to a system prompt. And then we have this second step that you see that entails LLMs. Okay? Here, what we are going to try to do is, from the plan of bring me something, for each one of the actions of bring me something, check if these actions were feasible or not. Okay? But LLMs are not that smart. Okay? So here, the idea was to provide the LLMs with a set of tools. You see here, we have a set of tools. So basically, for each one of these ask and answer actions, what we have is a potential call to a tool that helps the LLM to figure out. For example, the object that I need to grasp is at that distance. Is this a reachable distance for the arm of the robot or not? The LLM, general, does not know this kind of information. But you can tell the LLM, you have a tool that it's called, check if something is inside of your working space. Okay? That now you can call. And if you think that that's interesting, you can call that tool. Okay? We call that the grant ask answer issue loop. Okay? The idea is that between ask and answer, we ask and answer everything that we can. Okay? Once the LLM has decided to finish, that he has all the information, he generates a final response. Okay? In that case, for example, the final response is unfeasibility. I cannot do it. You know, the Mac, in fact, is dirty. Okay. We do a little bit more in the article because now we know why, and then we can ask another LLM if there is a solution from the set of actions that I know. Okay, and do I have a solution for that problem or not? Okay, and we can come up with a recovery plan. Makes it sense? Okay, let me show another example. For example, please slide the food item to the right of the cup. Okay, so here we need to know what means the right of the cup, slicing, how it's done. You see all the different problems that we have. So we are going to let the LLM to figure out how to use tools to solve this. The final response in that case, it's ambiguous, you know. So our method, our radar method, can answer no, it cannot be done. It's ambiguous, okay. It cannot be done at all. There is no solution, or there is an action to solution, okay. Here it was to exemplify that we cannot do only things by making, but the robot interacting is also sometimes a solution. For example, here we want to deliver the medicine to the user, but the user is not looking. So you cannot start a motion of approaching to the user if it's not looking for politeness reasons. But the solution is an interaction. You see, it's not changing the wall, it's not changing a variable or moving something. It's an interaction. Okay? So we can also plan interactions. Robots can do things that are called interactions. Makes it sense? Okay. Just an example. In this article, we were proposing this kind of tools, but basically, this is one part of the system that you have to tailor a little bit to your application. Okay? So if it's manipulation of things, that could be a good list of tools. Let's go through it. For example, to know if the robot is holding something. You know, you can the LLM has a tool that interrogates the robot to know if it's holding or not something. Or detection of objects. We are going to use a VLM for that nowadays. It is true. So we are not going to program classical vision methods to know which kind of objects are there. We are going to be using YOLO or any one of these powerful tools that we have now. Distance to target, the object state, if it's open, closed, sliced, or whatever. Which are the relationships between the objects, right to, inside to, all these kind of things that you can think. And the object properties. If it's cookable, for example, I need to cook, and yet I need to know if the object is cookable or it has been already cooked. Imagine I want to make it, cook salmon. I need to know that salmon is still raw, otherwise we're going to be cooking twice. Yeah. So this is a list, a good example of the tools that we can provide to a general LLM in that architecture that I was proposing to make the LLM a bit more smart to live in the robotics world. Okay, so these were the tests that we were using in our paper. You can see 260 from very different nature, like it cannot be like common sense issues or ambiguity issues or non-reachable targets using. Okay, what we demonstrated in the paper is that compared to other approaches, our approach is better at solving it. Not only better at solving it, it's better at providing a good excuse. You know, I cannot do it because the person is not looking at me, but you have this action, which is say something. You know, say something. That's the thing. You know, I cannot do it because I'm far, but I know that the robot can move, so basically move the robot closer. Okay, so our approach was smarter at doing this kind of actions. And it can be applied to other environments. And the paper is about manipulation of objects, but here was an example on a assisted scenario. For example, with unfeasibility option, we have also ambiguity and unfeasibility option on say, or finally something that we can recover. You know, so say please help me identify Ariana. I don't know how to identify Ariana, and then basically I can go. So this is just a way of showing the generalization of the approach. You know, as far as you provide the right tools. This is the limitation. Is it clear? So we need to provide the right tools to the LLM. Okay. I would like to talk, because now we're talking about excuse and communicating things. Okay, so I'm going to devote 5 minutes to the problem of explainability. Explainability is a hot topic now in general artificial intelligence. In Europe, for example, it's a hot topic by law. because the new laws of Europe says that all artificial intelligence algorithms must be explainable. So they have to say why they take some decisions. So in our case, it's not an option. It's no, we have to be compliant with that. But it's a very interesting problem. Okay, it's a very interesting problem in artificial intelligence, and I will argue that in robotics, as you know, it's even harder and even nicer. Okay, for why? Because the explanation can come from a hierarchy. You know, the explanation can come because from the perception system, I did not see something. From the execution system, I cannot do something. Or from the decision-making system. Or a mix. If I was more sure that this was an apple, then I would use this very effective grasping algorithm. But because I was not so sure, I decided to use another grasping algorithm that took more time. And that's the explanation on why I took more time than normally to take something from the table. Makes it sense? Yeah. Then, in robotics, we have time. Usually in artificial intelligence is why I did not get the mortgage. Because, well, in the United States, people get the parole based on an artificial intelligence system. Why I did not get the parole? And you have an answer from the artificial intelligence. Okay. In robotics, it's not like this. It's a continuous. You are with the robot all the time. So it's not only one answer. The answer has context. Why you bring me this? And the information, this, means something that is in the context. It's not in the sentence. You see? So it's even harder. And finally, there is a bidirectional communication. I provide an explanation, and the user can ask me for a continuation. And the continuation can mean that I have to change how I choose where the relevant information was, or how I choose which was the context, you see, or it's basically going a bit further. So hopefully now you are convinced that explainability in robotics is harder, and it has sense, or it's worth it to investigate it. So here we have one example. For example, we have this collaborative task. Why I'm putting that? Because one thing is explaining what has happened. Okay, this is just narratives. Okay, but we are interested in the semantics of it, not in explaining raw variables. The object is not blue and is red and not blue as you expected. We are interested in making abstractions of this knowledge. And one nice abstraction that you can do when you have your human-robot interaction is collaboration. Are these two agents collaborating between them? So the investigator doing most of the research is Alberto Olivares. So if you have any question on this topic, do not ask me, ask him. Okay, he's here in the audience. So you can, during the coffee break, approach him and ask more details about this. So what we did was, going through the notions of collaborations, realize that there was not complete enough definition, and propose a definition that is useful in human-robot interaction. Okay, so basically the intuition is that when two agents like a human and a robot collaborate, they need to share a goal, and they need to share and execute the plan. They need to know. Okay, so this is an intuition. Then we can do it more formally. We can go for a very detailed definition of what it means. We can even provide a formal definition of what it means to do that. Now that we have this formal definition, okay, and by the way, we can program it on a known language. Now that we have this definition, what we can do is analyze sequences of human-robot interaction. So this is basically sequences of data. Get chunks of this sequence, and then decide during this chunk there was a collaboration happening, and if not, which was the missing part of the collaboration. If you're interested, there is a repo, you can download all the code. So this is one example. For example, you see the person and the robot are supposed to be collaborating, but the person at some point stops and does another job. Okay, so the robot continues, and then we do this analysis. You know. Sorry. So now, analyzing just this part of the video, we can realize that there was not a collaboration. And there was not a collaboration because there wasn't a participant that was the robot, but the participant, human, was not there. And this is the explanation. If we put that in our ontology, okay, this is a representation of the knowledge, okay? And this is here, just to show that when we need to extract the information, we can go for a very shallow extraction, so just saying there was no collaboration, and that's it. We can go for a bit more informed explanation, like there was not a collaboration because, you know, that was missing. Or we can go for a complete, there was not a collaboration, and they were doing this task in this manipulation action, and it was a manipulation from here to here, so you see. So now, if we want to extract information, we have a nice and formal codification of what happened during that sequence. Okay? That was for particular sequences. What happens if we would like to understand the whole plan? Basically, what we can do is a bit of the same, you know? Here, there's an example just to put a bit of intuition on here, okay? Let's say that I ask the robot, bring me a drink, okay? And then the robot has two options. You remember at the beginning of my talk, I said, in human-robot interaction, we are now considering there is no solution to the plan. There are multiple solutions to the plan. Okay, now I have multiple solutions. How can I choose? And I can choose because I know how to compare and evaluate plans. Okay, for example, this plan is faster, is shorter, or is cheaper. Okay, so how can we, from the information that we have, get this semantic information about the plan and the plan comparison debate? Our idea is to enlarge our ontological approach to be able to codify this part. And let me go to the implementation, because what we did, it was formalize these qualities and then having relationships between these qualities. Oops. Okay. Relationships between these qualities. Okay. What it means compared to the graphic that I put it before is that we have for each one of the plans, this is plan A and this is plan B. Okay. Now we have not only the information, the semantic information that we have extracted, but this new information that is comparing both plans. And now, when I need to extract an explanation that compares both plans, I can go here and select, for example, the comparisons that are different. I'm not going to explain if two qualities of a plan are the same. If the plan costs the same, I'm not going to say. But if the one plan is faster than the other, this is going to be here, qualified. Okay. So we did some examples and also a database, and we got very good results, saying that the approach effectively it can be used to obtain this kind of explanations. I'm almost at the end, so at my presentation, Professor Lin was mentioning this collaboration that we have, and I wanted to talk a little bit about this collaboration because it's exactly on these topics, and it's kind of the next step. So we have been having this collaboration with Alenyà Lab, directed by Professor Lin. We have had some very nice discussions in different environments. Okay. More discussions in other kind of environments. I don't know if I have to put that or not. That's fine. This was a discussion in a hot pot, which was very nice, by the way. You know, sometimes discussions in these kind of environments are more useful than in the lab. Well, if you discuss for 3 hours on the lab, then go into a hot pot. It's a very nice way of summing up, let's say. Okay, and this is what we did. So basically here what we have is a collaborative task. You see the robot and the operator. You have the operator back on the audience also. And they are sharing this task, you see. This is an inspection, an industrial inspection, and the robot sometimes inspects well, sometimes he has doubts. These yellow things are doubts, okay? So he's asking the human, in this position, I'm not very sure, please go and check, okay? And you can see that this is very similar to the use cases that I've been talking about. So the idea is that now our explainability system, when linked with this industrial application, can be used to extract information and to compare plans. For example, the human has been for the first 2 hours very cooperative, but now, has not been that much cooperative with the robot. Or at the beginning of the day, there were less errors, and at the end of the day, the human maybe is, doing more errors. So now, because we can put semantics on the comparison, now we can compare between two different plans, or between the plans of a whole day, or between the plans of, whole session. And that's why it is important. Okay, and let me finish by presenting very briefly one very nice initiative that we are doing related to assistive robotics. We call it Labora. Labora stands for Open Lab for Assistive Robotics. Okay, we call it open because we gather all this plethora of companies and stakeholders. So we are based on this quadruple helix of health system and social service system. Okay, so what we are having here is academia, industry, government, and community all around the same table to discuss how we would like that the robots of the future for social applications and for health applications look like. And I would like to say, this is the only way of producing effective robots that can help society. Not going to the lab, closing the doors, just imagining what would be nice, and then at some point opening the doors and saying, hey world, this is the nice robot that I need to solve your problems. So you first have to go outside. You have to ask the patients, the people, the elders, but also the professionals, caregivers, nurses, okay? Which are the problems that they would like, that they have, okay? And then co-create with them some of the solutions. And by doing that, we have been very effective on the last years. So, for example, now we are, as I'm speaking, putting the furniture on a new lab that we have, 500 square meters, where we have not only the place, but also different robots, some prototypes and some commercial robots that we have. And in the last 5 years, we have been involved in more than 25 projects. And you see here, all 25 projects involve people. People either in the design phase, or people in the evaluation phase. And I think that this is, as a claim, as a power idea for finishing my talk, very interesting. So I'm open to questions if you have any. Thank you.
Hello. Okay, I think this is a very inspiring speech. You see, they have a 500 square meter lab, so I'm jealous. Even in NYC, we don't have such a big place. So, any questions from the audience? Yes. Yeah, we have a guy.
Sorry, I still don't understand how you send the information and let the LM or other decision-making algorithm to understand the physical limitation of such actuators. Like if you wish to like if you wish algorithm to make a proper plan, but while the robot can actually do that, like the physical limitation sort of thing, how do you solve such a thing?
I'm not sure I have understood the question, sorry. So it was about the actuators and how we decide?
Yeah, because like sometimes the actuators, the
Yeah.
limitation it has doesn't quite exist in and those information provided. So
Okay.
how does that?
Okay, so when we talk about actuators in this kind of robot that I showed, it's basically two kinds of movements. Either the mobile base for navigation, you need to navigate into the house, for example, you need to go to the kitchen, or you need, if you are in a hospital, you need to go from the lab, or from the operating theater to the lab. So basically it's navigation. Or, as I was saying, manipulation. And we like a lot of manipulation, so with them, it's actuators to do that. The science behind that is quite known, and there is not that much new science. There is more engineering problems on that than real science, because this is a very classical problem. Moving robots from navigation and around, or grasping things. One new trend is use LLMs for that, LRMs, okay, for that. So basically you have an input which is an image, and then you expect the network to move and grasp. And this is also very, very powerful, and it has proven to work very well, okay? And if your question is if this can be computed on board of the robot, or we need to send that information outside, training, it's true that it cannot be done on the robot, but execution, the execution time, you can execute that networks usually on the robot. I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Okay, so any more questions? Okay.
Hello, thank you for the talk. I'm curious in combining the concept of the explainability of the robot with what you mentioned earlier about kind of, I'm seeing this picture of the preferences of the human that is either collaborating or that they're assisting with. Is there any connection when you're kind of, maybe you have two possible plans and you're trying to determine which one would be more optimal? I think in the example was something like whether to have tea or a Coke, and I think the example of why it was chosen was kind of for practical reasons, like for instance, it'd be quicker to make a cup of tea than to go buy a Coke. I'm wondering, is there any connection, or do you see a future for any kind of connection of like utilizing perhaps different human preferences that the robots interacted with in the past and combine that with this ontological approach for explainability?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and in fact is a hot topic in general research, but also in our research, and we call it personalization of the robot. What we have is a user model, and we keep updating this user model. For example, the user prefers Coke. Okay, but then and the user prefers Coke, and then when the robot needs to go to the kitchen, if the function that we want to optimize is that the user is happy with the robot, we will try to find Coke and bring Coke to the user. There is a second derivative here. Now imagine that the person has health issues, and family doctors, whatever, said, okay, 1 Coke per day is enough, not 2 Cokes, okay? And now the user is asking for the second Coke of the day. What the robot should do? Bring the user a second Coke, so he's compliant with the preference of the user, or bring tea, because this is good for the health, and also it's compliant with the preference of the caregivers. And here you have a very nice research topic, okay?
Thank you.
Any more questions? I think this topic is very interesting about the high level and low level interaction. So that's why our PhD project is how to fill in the gap between high level and low level. So you just mentioned the rate. So I have a question is that if I ask ChatGPT, like the question like a closed question, like ask not the guess, will be better to double check to this is feasible or not.
So one of the problems of all these deep learning methods is hallucinations.
Yes.
They will never tell you I don't know. They will just try to answer. Okay. So most of the work that we have been doing is inspired because we wanted to use LLMs or the deep learning approaches, but they were failing all the time. They were proposing things that were not feasible. They were even hallucinating the action that the robot could do, or they were proposing to wipe the floor with a salmon, for example, which we know that it's it's feasible, but we should not wipe the salmon on the floor. Okay. So a lot of work that we had to do when trying to use LLMs in robotics, it was trying to catch these bad propositions, filtering all these bad things. And that's why we adhere with this idea that LLMs are very nice for something. I've shown some examples. But for example, for planning, you should still rely on more reliable methods. Why? For two reasons. Because the first one is because they do not hallucinate. So everything that it outputs is better. Second one is because it's explainable. Then I can say why I decided this and not another thing. Okay. If you cannot say why you could not see the Coke on the table even though it was there, I don't see that as a big problem. I was in front and my algorithm I could not detect the Coke even though it's here in front. And this is a visual model, for example, failing miserably. YOLO, let's say, YOLO not detecting apples on the table. Just saying I could not see it, to me that's already a nice explanation. But if you go to the realm of planning or deciding actions, failures should be explained. And that's why I am proposing to use LLMs as tools to make planning easier, but at the end of the day, having something that decides the action that can be interrelated. My proposal.
I think that's a good idea. But maybe we can discuss later. So I think time is up, right? Okay, thank you for joining this talk. I think we have a very fruitful discussion in this conference, and I think that's it. Thank you for coming. Let's give a souvenir for you. Taiwanese tea. It's a very, I don't know because it's a oolong, oolong tea. And this, the Oriental beauty, oolong, it's also oolong, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, also this.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have outside. Just please enjoy. Thank you.